Alrighty, so this is Sophie Milam. I'm the High Seas 3 Crew Roboticist, and I've got some questions here from Sandy Miller Elementary School. So let's get right down to it. The first question is from Mr. Brandon G, and he asks, how does this experiment help the world? Well, as you guys probably know, we've already been to the moon. There was Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin, and actually a bunch of other people who went back in the 60s and 70s. And when they went there, they were trying to do a lot of different science, but most of the things that we ended up learning from them were things that they didn't intend to find out. These are called technology spin-offs, and things like GPS, which keeps you from getting lost, a lot of the different technologies in your cell phone, including your cell phone camera, and even astronauts' visors were made into scratch-resistant lenses. They've also made other things, like temper foam, which is now what a lot of mattresses are made out of, cordless vacuum cleaners for cleaning up around the space station, and also freeze-dried food, which let me tell you, we have quite a bit of experience with. So going to Mars isn't just about what we know we can find out there or what we're really hoping to find out there. It's also the fact that there are a lot of things that we can learn that we don't even know that we can yet. So one of the big things is sustainability. So I'm sure you guys have heard your parents talk about cars with higher gas mileage or greenhouse gases in the atmosphere. And what that is that's humans leaving their mark on the Earth, the entire planet. So what we're trying to do here is we're learning how to live sustainably. That means that we don't provide a lot of emissions into the atmosphere. We don't constantly need resupplies of things. We don't have any fuel and things like that. So right now we're kind of half and half because we actually do have a fuel generator, but a lot of our power is solar, which means that we have these giant solar panels and they absorb energy from the sun, basically. There's a little bit more to it than that, as my commander will tell you, because she's very into the photovoltaics, but that's the essential idea. Also, we have hydrogen fuel cells. Those use hydrogen, they turn it into fuel, and the output is water, so that's kind of like its waste. And I mean, having something that produces power and gives off water as waste is kind of a great thing. So those are our fuel systems, and that's what I hope the Mars missions of the future bring to the world. I hope they bring more information on how to live sustainably and maybe being able to get our planet back on track and lessen the effects that we've had on it. So great question, Brandon. Next, Solomon is asking, why is NASA studying teamwork since it has been studied before? This is a very good question as well. Teamwork is really important because if you're going to go to another planet, you really want to be able to trust the people you're with. But not only trust them, you need to be friends with them. And you don't only have to be friends with them, you have to be colleagues, which means that you have to respect their ideas, you have to be able to work with them well. There are a lot of friends I have that I would not want to try and build a bookshelf with, much less a Martian habitat. So it's about getting the right group of people together that really know how to work and how to play and how to really be there for each other. And I think that our crew here is just a really great example of that. So NASA has studied teamwork before, but not for this long. So we're in here for 8 months. We came in here on October 15th, and we're gonna leave on June 12th, which is only 3 days before my birthday, so I'm pretty happy. But the point of that is that people change when they're in a very small place with only the same 5 other people for 8 months. And they want to know how we not only arrive together and try and work things out, but how over the entire course of the mission we're changing, and maybe our relationships are growing or ending, maybe there's conflict within the group. And that comes up, you know, really with time. So I mean, I bet you can pick 3 of your best friends in class right now and be like, okay, I would go on a camping trip with these 3 people for a week and we would have a great time. Now think about those same 3 people for maybe 4 weeks, okay? So an entire month. And now what about 4 months? Can you really imagine being with those same people for that long of a time with nobody else? You can't see anyone else. You have to work with these people, you have to set up your tent, you have to build a fire, you have to cook your own food. So all of those things are really the aspects that we're trying to see here. And our mission right now, we are the longest duration mission of this, of this category that has both girls and boys present. So there was one mission that went for 520 days, and it was only men, and it was somewhere in Russia, I believe, but it was called Mars 500. And they learned a whole lot about that, but they only had one side of, humans there. They only had men. So our group is not only looking at how we live together, work together, play together, but also how men and women get along in this close of an environment for this long. So that's why NASA's studying us. They have studied teamwork before, but they just haven't done it on this scale, with this configuration of people, and for this long. So great question, Solomon. Thank you. Alrighty. Our next question comes from Frida, and they're asking what tools from NASA are they using to conduct their experiments? So right now we have support from NASA for our communications. We communicate via the internet with our ground support, as well as all of the researchers who have projects here. So we have projects from all over the US, from different universities that are studying different things about how we get along together, how we cook our food together. We have even a psychologist kind of virtual space program where if we're feeling depressed or if we have conflicts that we can't resolve on our own, we can go and get help from them. So those are the tools we're using now. Crystal wants to know, what about this type of experiment could cause sleep disorders or changes in behavior? Well, this is a really good question too. So, do you remember your first day of school? And kind of how you went into a new class and there were a lot of people there that you didn't really know. Maybe you had seen them before. And then over the course of that year in school, you became really good friends with someone that you had only just met. So that's one of the ways that our behavior can change. In the beginning, we didn't really know each other. We had about a week together before, but after that, we were just kind of getting to know each other, and when you're starting off being friends with someone, you act one way, and then when you get to be better friends with someone, you act another way towards them. More comfortable and more familiar. So that's some of the ways that our behavior can change. And I believe those are ways our behavior can change for the better. When you get more comfortable with someone, you're better able to talk with them about things that are a little bit more personal to you. And that makes you better friends. Another way that your behavior can change for the worse is that maybe you start to feel isolated. And that's what the scientists are studying in us. Whether or not we go from just becoming really good friends with everyone on the crew, or whether we kind of start to withdraw and we kind of start to limit our contact with our crew members, and that's not a good behavioral sign. So luckily, no one has done that on our crew. We're really good friends. But there have been times when bad things happened. I found out that a family friend had died, and I did withdraw for a day or two because I was really sad, and I didn't want to bring that into the rest of the crew's kind of world. So I just sort of limited my contact until I could, process what was going on, and until I could be outside without being really, really sad. And that's some of the things that we have to learn how to do. We have to learn how to maintain our own psychological health while not pushing people away. Some of the ways that it can change your sleep behavior is that we're in a dome and we have two small windows. Right now you're in my room, so I've got pictures of family and my bed, I've got little posters on the wall, and I've got my computer behind me. But really, what you're seeing now, how it's all lit up, is that I have the light on, and I also have a light on the camera shining on me. So when you're in a really bright environment, it's really hard to sleep, you know, because lots of lights on, there's also, you know, noise from the crew and things like that that are going to keep you up. But if I wanted to sleep in the middle of the day here, it would be really easy because all I would need to do is turn off the lights. So that's what I'm going to do for you now. Alright, so we are now, it is about 1 in the afternoon, so pretty bright time of day considering it's Hawaii. And this is how bright my room is. There's a little bit of light coming through the vent in the floor and a little bit of light coming through the vent in the upper wall above my door, but that's it. This is nice and dark. I could sleep in here really easily in the middle of the day if I wanted to. So let's turn, this is my room light, so this is how my room normally looks. And that's with the camera light back on. So I've actually been going through having a little bit of a problem sleeping. And mostly I just can't really seem to sleep as much as I used to outside. Alrighty, Letty wants to know what can't be replicated here in Hawaii that would be on Mars. So a lot of those things are environmental. The temperature here is, I don't know, between 30 on our coldest nights, 30 degrees Fahrenheit, to around 80 during the day on the warmest days. On Mars, it is negative 225 degrees Fahrenheit, so pretty cold. And it actually gets all the way up to 93 degrees Fahrenheit, which I'm sure Las Vegas summers, you guys know exactly what that feels like. The other thing we can't replicate here is the gravity. Earth is a lot bigger than Mars, which means that it has more mass. This means that it's pulling on us to keep us closer to it. So Mars is much smaller, and its gravity is about the 1/3 of Earth's gravity. So on the plus side, that means if we were on Mars, we could jump really, really high. On the other hand, it means that our bones and our muscle mass will start to deteriorate because we don't need to work as much just to hold ourselves up. Another thing that we can't replicate is the atmosphere. So the atmosphere is kind of a global thing, and it would be really hard for us to replicate that. Also, the atmosphere on Mars is toxic to us. It's mostly composed of carbon dioxide, which is poisonous. Earth's atmosphere, on the other hand, is mostly composed of nitrogen and oxygen, which are, nitrogen is harmless, and oxygen is great for us. It's, you know, how we breathe. So those are some of the things that we can't really replicate here in the dome. The things that we can replicate are the 20-minute delays in communication, and that comes from being from Earth and Mars being so far apart. Other things we can replicate are our contact with humans. So we haven't seen anyone besides the 6 people that are here in a very long time. We had one accident where a crew member needed to get stitches from a doctor, and other than that, it's just been us, and that was in November, I believe, so it's been about 4 months. Let's see. So Gabrielle wants to know how our backgrounds and experiences compare to those of real astronauts. And this also goes along with a question by Jacob, which asks, why are real astronauts not in the simulation? So I'll tackle these 2 questions at once. The 6 of us were selected based on our similarities with astronaut candidates. So basically what that means is that any of us could potentially apply to be astronauts. And they think that given our experiences and our backgrounds, all of which are different, that we would be good, strong candidates to be astronauts. So that being said, why don't we have real astronauts here? And that answer is kind of typical. Astronauts are in very high demand. They're going to be going into space. They have a lot of training to do. They need to know everything about the space station when they get there, whatever method of transportation they're getting up there on. I mean, they really have to be training pretty much from start to finish. So they don't really have the time to take out and be put in this kind of a situation. and that's pretty much the reason that we don't have astronauts. As a side note though, every single one of us wants to be an astronaut. So maybe after this is all done, we'll all apply to be astronauts and see where we get. But great questions. So Joanna wants to know, would we have access to email on a real mission? And absolutely. Mostly the problem is that they can't send a whole lot of data at the same time. So maybe you guys go home and you watch a TV show on Netflix or a movie on Netflix. What that is that's streaming you information at a very high rate so that you can see every second of that movie as it comes into your TV. So on Mars we can't do that because that's too much information to send from Earth to Mars. But things like text are very, very small files. They're very, very little data relative to, a movie or an image. So we can receive all kinds of text, be it email or instructions on how to do things. We can also receive news in the form of text. So basically we get 10 or 15 news articles a day on kind of what's going on in the world for those who want to keep up with it. So we can definitely get email. Pictures and movies are the things that would be more difficult to send, but we can still send those. It would just take longer, for example. So like how you stream Netflix instantly, it would take us probably a few hours to buffer that kind of a video content. And it would be at a much lower resolution, so it wouldn't look as great. Samson wants to know how it's possible to communicate between Mars and Earth. And basically it's the same as how we communicate on Earth. So there are satellites around the world, and let's say when you use your cell phone, a tower is picking it up. It's picking up the signal that your cell phone is transmitting, and if you're calling China, for example, it gets picked up and it gets beamed up to satellites that then transfer it around the world and then to another cell phone tower in China. So we do that, except that instead of, going around the world to China, it gets up to a satellite and then goes out to Mars. And then Mars has satellites going around it that can receive the data and then transfer it down to the ground over there. So that's how the Curiosity robot sends back its pictures and its movies and its data on Mars that it's gathering right now. It also has, 3 different methods of communication. One is called X-band, which is an extended version of the AM band of radio, which you guys probably know about. Radio isn't super common anymore. So it has that on board its own system. It also has a transmitter and receiver that can reach Earth if there are no satellites around. And then it also has a satellite uplink. So the next questions are from PJ. He wants to know, what were our experiences with each other before the simulation started? Were these experiences to your benefit, and how? And what have we learned so far? So before the simulation started, we were able to go on a camping trip together for 7 days while we were evaluated. And there were also 2 additional members who were in the running to be part of the group. So, that's pretty much it. It was around 10 days total that we got to know each other. But being out and camping in a group like that, you really do get to know each other really fast. And that was definitely to our benefit, because we got to see how each other react in stressful situations, kind of what their preferences were regarding certain foods and things like that. So that was interesting and really cool. Let's see, the other one was, what have we learned so far? So I think that we've all really learned how to live together as a group a lot better. So not only just, kind of tolerating each other's food preferences and inabilities. I'm celiac, so I can't have gluten, which is in a lot of things like bread and in a lot of sauces and stuff like that, pasta. And there's another member of our crew who can't have onion or garlic, which the rest of us really like to cook with. So we've learned a lot about not only creating like cooking schedules and cleaning schedules and kind of chores that we each have to do, but we've also learned how to accommodate each other in all of all of our ways that we can. So not only cooking gluten-free and onion-free meals, but also, you know, if someone doesn't really like whatever show, then we don't really watch that show together as a family. And just things like that. We really try to help each other out as much as possible. So other than that, we've learned how to kind of notice when people are feeling a little down, whether or not to give them space or whether we need to, you know, really try and include them more. We learned a lot about all of the different science going on with us. So many of us have kind of control over the other research projects that they're doing on us. So like we have to transfer data at certain points for certain projects. And we do that. Each person has their own project that they work with, and they try to get the best data possible given what we have to work with. So yeah. The last question that we have is really broad, but I figured I'd try and address it anyway. It says, what does NASA have the capabilities to do? And this is huge. Just a giant question. I mean, they put rovers on Mars. They send spaceships to the outer reaches of the solar system. They take beautiful pictures of Saturn. And not only all of that, but they're also looking a lot at Earth and how to make things on Earth better too. So they're very into sustainability. And sustainability is great when trying to reduce our footprint on the Earth and try and get it back to some of its more natural cycles. And this includes a lot of things like recycling, being able to clean up and recycle waste, being able to just not produce as much waste in the first place, that and not being able to, or not putting as much pollutants into the atmosphere and the water around us. All of those things are things that NASA is also looking at. And all of the robots that we have going to other planets and things like that, there are just as many, if not more, robots being designed for helping out things on Earth as well. So NASA has a very, very broad range of things that they're doing. They put humans into space, robots into space, satellites, telescopes, satellite telescopes. Really, it's kind of everything space related and a lot of Earth science as well. So for as many satellites as there are looking out at the universe, so out from Earth to Mars and to Saturn, and even out farther beyond that, like Hubble telescope and the James Webb Space Telescope that's going to be operational, there are 20 more looking down at Earth trying to figure out how we're impacting things and how we can possibly stop that impact from being quite so permanent. So thank you so much for all of your great questions. I really look forward to getting more from you and working on all of our projects together. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.